Welcome to Daily Interlake News Now. I'm your host, Taylor Inman. We're taking a look at some of last week's biggest headlines and what's coming up for the Flathead Valley. In this week's Deep Dive segment, I chatted with a couple of members of the bluegrass band Steep Canyon Rangers who played at the Wachholz College Center last Friday. They are Grammy Award winners and frequent collaborators of comedian Steve Martin, who can also play a mean banjo. They gave us a look into their love of bluegrass and their new album Morning Shift, which is out in September. But first, here are some headlines. The Flathead County Sheriff's Office identified 3 people killed in a pair of vehicle crashes last week. On July 3rd, Kalispell resident 21-year-old Destiny Marie Wright and her 4-year-old daughter were traveling south on US 2 south of Columbia Falls when her Toyota Tacoma was struck head-on by an older model Chevrolet pickup, according to a press release from the Sheriff's Office. Wright died at the scene. She was wearing her seatbelt and her daughter was restrained in the car seat. The child was transported to Logan Health Medical Center with serious injuries, and her condition was not known as of Wednesday afternoon. The Chevrolet pickup was occupied by 3 individuals and was reported to be traveling northbound when it was seen crossing all lanes of traffic and collided head-on with Wright's vehicle. 19-year-old Kyan Lee Bowman Wheeler from Hungry Horse also died at the scene. Bowman Wheeler was the unrestrained rear passenger of the pickup. The driver was a 15-year-old boy from Coram, according to the Montana Highway Patrol. An 18-year-old woman from Whitefish was the front passenger. Both were seriously injured and transported to Logan Health. Alcohol, drugs, and speed were suspected factors in the crash, according to the Montana Highway Patrol. Highway Patrol, Columbia Falls Fire, 3 Rivers EMS, Whitefish Fire Ambulance, Evergreen Fire Ambulance, Glacier Park International Airport Fire, and Flathead County Sheriff's Office all responded to the crash. And on July 2nd, an 18-year-old Bigfork resident, Devin Victor, was killed in a motorcycle wreck on Montana 35. According to Montana Highway Patrol, the teen was riding a Yamaha FZ09 motorcycle when it came up on a Lexus RX heading in the same direction at a high rate of speed at about 9 p.m. Victor was thrown from the bike after it clipped the Lexus at mile marker 30 near Village Lane in Bigfork. The 18-year-old later succumbed to his injuries at Logan Health. The occupants of the Lexus, an 87-year-old man and a 78-year-old woman, both from Kalispell, were both wearing seatbelts and were uninjured in the collision. More than 150 concerned citizens were left with more questions than answers as the proposed North Shore Woods housing development in Bigfork was pulled from consideration at the monthly meeting of the Bigfork Land Use Advisory Committee after a request from the developer. The large crowd that had packed into the basement of the Bethany Lutheran Church on June 29th to comment on the proposed 105-acre development was left in an uproar when project manager Michael Brody of the WGM Group requested a continuance, stating that the developers had not received the county's staff reports on the project until 2 hours prior to the 4 p.m. meeting. According to Brody, his staff, along with the applicant Longbow Land Partners LLC, they would need more time to review the reports before any public hearing could be held. The announcement prompted several angry outbursts from those in attendance, including calling the move a tactic, with Jim Abney, who owns property bordering the proposed development, threatening to return to the next meeting with even more people in opposition. The proposed development would be located in the area behind Dairy Queen to the south and El Topo Cantina to the north off of Highway 35 in Bigfork. The currently vacant area is proposed to be developed by Longbow Land Partners LLC of Jackson, Wyoming. According to a planned unit development overlay application filed with the Flathead County Planning and Zoning Office on March 30th, the company intends to build 125 single-family units on the property and is asking the county to cut the required lot size in half to do so. While the crowd was angry and disappointed by the postponement of the hearing, County Planner Zachary Moon says the applicant is within their rights to ask for a continuance. In a conversation with the Bigfork Eagle on Friday, Moon stated there had been no delay and that the information had been released on the same schedule that it had been in the past. According to Moon, the staff reports were sent to the advisory committee members on Tuesday and posted online and sent to the applicant on Wednesday. The applicant has 1 year from the date of the request to be put on hold, which was received by county planning and zoning officials on Friday to resume the consideration of their project, according to Moon. According to the planning department, property owners living in the vicinity of the project will be noticed before any hearings take place. Glacier National Park officials are soliciting public comment on a proposal to close the Swiftcurrent developed area during the 2025 season for water and road improvements. Officials say the season-long closure is necessary to reduce the overall impact to visitors by avoiding stretching construction over multiple seasons. According to the project's story map, the Swiftcurrent developed area includes Swiftcurrent Motor Inn and General Store, Swiftcurrent Lodging, Mini Glacier Campground, the Swiftcurrent Picnic Area, Swiftcurrent Lake Boat Launch, and the Mini Glacier Ranger Station. The Mini Glacier Hotel and associated concessionaire services will not be part of the project area. Work will begin on the area during the fall of 2024, continue in the spring and summer of 2025, and wrap up in the spring of 2026. Work will be paused in the winter, and the area would remain open to non-motorized vehicle recreation such as skiing or snowshoeing. There will be no public vehicle access while the project is underway. The project area will be closed to visitors, though public use of the trail system in the area would remain available. The Iceberg Lake, Targaman Tunnel, and Swiftcurrent Pass trails would be accessed at the west end of the project area via a horse access trail that bypasses the construction. As part of the project, the road between the Mini Glacier Hotel intersection and Swiftcurrent developed area will be rehabilitated, including pavement and drainage improvements. Parking will also be improved. Improvements to the water infrastructure include replacing water lines, rehabilitating the existing well, and creating a new well, which will serve as a backup water source. Glacier National Park officials are taking public comment on the project until July 30th at 11:59 p.m. Park officials want to know how the project would affect visitor experience in the area and Glacier overall, as well as how the park can mitigate impacts to the visitor experience during the construction period. Public comment can be submitted online, and the project story map can be found by searching Swiftcurrent at parkplanning.nps.gov. Now it's time for our deep dive segment. Last week I had the chance to chat with a couple members of the bluegrass band Steep Canyon Rangers. Singer and guitarist Aaron Burdett and bass player and singer Barrett Smith give us a glimpse into their love of bluegrass and how their band has always loved playing shows in the Rocky Mountains.
Well, and you guys are coming to me from somewhere outside of Asheville, North Carolina right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Can you tell me a little bit about how the band formed? I know it's been around for a long time.
The band formed in the late 1900s in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where the University of North Carolina and Chapel Hill is, and a bunch of us were in school together, and just started a band really for fun. Actually, only one guy who was there in the very, very original is still with us, but there was a lot of shuffling around of members right at the beginning. And so the band started there in Chapel Hill, a bunch of buddies. It's been together now for over 20 years. The band eventually transferred over here to Asheville, Western North Carolina. A bunch of the guys were from here. And been at it steady since then.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems pretty common for a band that's been around for a long time to have members kind of like, come and go like that. From when you started it back then to what it is now, like what's the biggest difference, do you think?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, neither Aaron nor I were in the band at that point when it started all those years ago. So, you've had personnel changes, but there's a really solid culture that a lot of it has stayed the same. Musically, I mean, the band started as a really strictly traditional bluegrass band. Traditional as in like staying within the mold, all playing around one microphone, all acoustic, all the material was really much in the vein of like traditional bluegrass music, and aiming to play only at like really, really great, really traditional bluegrass festivals, which the band did really well for a long time. And then, things changed, and it steadily changed, and moving away from that traditional mold has probably been the biggest change that the band made over the years in various ways.
Yeah. I did want to ask, so why bluegrass? What draws both of you guys to bluegrass music?
Growing up in North Carolina, and particularly in the mountains here, you're kind of steeped in it. I wasn't really interested in it as a child or even a teenager, but when I got in my 20s and ended up in Boone, North Carolina, and ran into this sort of traditional music, it was like it just sort of hit a spot in me that had always been there, and it's incredibly energetic and lively music. And the people that I was drawn to at that time were much like the Rangers are now, sort of taking it in new directions, like taking that baseline of great instrumentation, great instrumentalists, great arrangements, great vocals and harmonies, great songs, but sort of playing them in a little more modern way. It was newgrass at the time, was what a lot of that was called. And at the same time, there's this really rich tradition that goes way back. And I mean, I am not. Matter of fact, when I joined, as I was watching, we did a courting process over a few months where I went and played some gigs, and we would hang out, and a lot of it's just seeing if we hang out well together. And I would see these guys, particularly Mike Gugino and Graham, just ripping these traditional bluegrass songs backstage before shows. And I remember talking to Graham saying, Graham, I don't know I recognize those, but I don't know them all, I don't have the pedigree in bluegrass you guys do. And he said, that's okay. That's not even what we play now. Don't worry about it. We're just warming up. That's sort of where we came from. But what you need to do now is what we're doing now and what you do now.
Yeah.
So there's a long history of back to when it started, of people doing something new with an existing sort of set musical form.
Yeah. How about you, Barrett?
I'd say, it really resonated with me when Aaron said lively music, because when the band started, I wasn't in the band, but I was in Chapel Hill and we were all buddies. And I was deep in the classical music world. That was my thing. I was studying music in college. I'm the only guy in the band who was at that time. And I worked really hard on it, and I was really proud of it. And it's really beautiful music, and nobody came to see me do it really, or cared, and nobody really wanted to listen to it so much. And yet these buddies of mine who started this band just kind of from scratch, it's almost like they started the band before they could play the instruments even. They just kind of wanted to have a good time and party. And right out of the gates, it's like everybody wanted to go see this band, including me, and party and have a good time. So that like taught me a good lesson about, how much fun am I having? What do I really want to do with this? And meanwhile, as far as like getting into that music, I had a real I didn't grow up with that music, but I had this really, what's typical of, I feel like, our age group, introduction to that music kind of through a hippie lens, as in like, I heard Jerry Garcia play the banjo on this Old and in the Way album, and that was my introduction to bluegrass. And the band Fish, who I loved when I was a teenager, they played bluegrass music, and it just got my wheels turning. And then around the same time, I had an English teacher of mine introduced me to Doc Watson, and I was 16. And yeah, all those things kind of converged. And it's funny now, after all these years and all the different kinds of music that especially Aaron and I have been into, that it seems kind of inevitable now that we would converge on this kind of style of music, or some form of it anyway.
So speaking of new music or new bluegrass, I saw that you guys put out a new single recently. I listened to it and I really enjoyed it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed a little bit different than some of your previous albums. Can you tell, is there a new album coming out, first of all? Nice. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's called Morning Shift. And yeah, it has some stuff that's pretty outside of the mold of certainly traditional bluegrass, and it's got some stuff that's really inside the mold of traditional bluegrass. And we're always straddling that. We're always toying with that. As a band that was very, very traditional by any standards, it was totally traditional. And having moved away from that and dealing with moving away from that, and our audience is dealing with moving away from that. You listen to that last single, and yeah, it's not very much bluegrass going on in that song. But we have another single coming out like any second now. When is it coming out, Aaron?
I think it's next week. I remember. No, didn't she say the 8th or 11th? Do they come out on Tuesdays still? I think it's the 11th. It must be next Tuesday.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that one is, it's a bluegrass song, no doubt. Yeah. It functions totally, or it's more of a bluegrass song, the beat of it anyway. So we do both. And everything.
Some jerk put drums on it, but so I mean, that takes you out of the technical running for bluegrass. But
it does. It does. One level of technicality tells you that you can't have drums in bluegrass. A deeper level of technicality will show you that, like, J.D. Crowe put drums on an album.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, album comes out in September, and these are the first 2 singles off of it.
Mm-hmm.
There might be one more before it. No, probably not. There's probably just a focus track when it comes. There might be one more that comes out before the September 8th or 9th street date.
Yeah, one of the most notable things about the album is it's the first album that we've done with Aaron. I mean, you're talking to very much the 2 newest members of this band. This is the first album that we've done with Aaron. And it will forever be the first album that we did with Aaron. That's one of the most notable things about it, for sure. And it worked out really well. We had like a magical, bizarre, awesome recording experience where we like lived in a cabin in the woods with our producer Daryl Scott for almost a week and really put everything into it, and we're real proud of it. And it comes out in the fall. A few songs will be released before, one already, one soon, and then another one to come. And then, then the whole thing comes out in the fall. Nice. We'll be playing songs from that album, a lot of songs from that album when we play in Kalispell.
Aaron, with this being your first album, how was your experience recording it and being part of it?
Well, I've done a lot of recording in the past. So in one sense, it was just how recording goes. It's alternately inspiring and deflating and grueling and enjoyable. It's just it's an emotional roller coaster. But I don't know, being able to work with these guys as a band, and fit into that existing framework, and how gracious and welcoming everybody has been to me, and just how smoothly the whole thing has gone. I continues to suspiciously smoothly. I don't know. And then, of course, Daryl Scott, who is one of my heroes, was there with us all week. So, I mean, this whole thing with the Rangers, it's been a year, but the whole thing's been kind of like a whirlwind. And I haven't even, much like I was describing that thing at the Hollywood Bowl, where I didn't even have the time to really sit and think about what was happening. I just needed to do it. That's sort of what that week up there was, because we were just working really hard on harmonies and songs, and it was really cool. And if maybe I'll go inside and sit and think about it and realize how cool it was. But we just never stopped moving, really. I mean, we just never stopped moving. Matter of fact, we're all sort of thinking about the next one. This one hadn't even come out, and we're like, okay, what do we do next? And that's one thing I like about this band, is they love to work hard, and I do too. I just consistently. It doesn't have to be hard. It just always trying to get better. And all in all, I think that recording process was, as Barrett described, pretty magical.
Yeah.
Nice. So have you guys been touring a lot this year so far, or where's Kalispell kind of fall in your tour this year?
We tour all the time. And unlike, we do it the way we do it, everybody does it differently, and it's all pretty relative, what's a lot or not a lot. We don't go on long tours. We don't go away for a long tour and then come home for a long time. We just go and come home and go and come home kind of constantly. So we're always in between coming and going. So typically, we're either on the road or where we were a few days ago, or we're about to be a few days from now. We're always kind of coming and going. And what are we going to do on this next little run that we take up there in the West? what are we bringing to it, and how are we going to make those shows really, really special and really cool for those people up there. So that's where it falls in the tour, between like trying to do something really great and trying to do something really great.
Yeah. And just the nonstopness of it all, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nonstop of it all. And man, those, I was here. I just kind of like logged in while Aaron was talking about his own history with Montana and with the West. And yeah, this band has there was a long time in the early days where a lot of us who were in the bluegrass world, we were either playing on the East Coast, like in the Southeast a lot, or if we weren't here, we wanted to be in the Rockies. Basically, we wanted to be in Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, in these cool mountain towns, because there was just such enthusiasm and such an interesting, fresh take on acoustic music and bluegrass music. It was during the time of like Leftover Salmon was really exciting, and then eventually Yonder Mountain String Band. And these were Colorado Western bands, and there were all these great festivals out there. So coming to Montana and playing is not, it's not just any place to us. The West, the Rocky Mountains, holds a special place for us. We've just had endless, can't even begin to remember all of the amazing good times we've had in that region and all the great shows that we've gotten to play. So we see that on our calendar coming to Montana, and we make a special note. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when I moved out here. There's not really a difference in the music that people like so much in Kentucky and out here in Montana. And I was surprised that they like bluegrass so much and folk music. And I guess chalk it up to like mountain people. Maybe.
Mountain people, to me, there's some kind of tenuous link between just people who, when you're in Montana and just visually you're bombarded with such spectacular natural beauty, and there's so much of a tendency for people to really enjoy nature and the outdoors and get out there and appreciate it. There's a link between that and acoustic music. To me, natural acoustic, people playing instruments and singing in a down home kind of way, those things link up to me.
I could see that. So are you guys gonna do anything fun while you're here? I always like to ask people who visit the area if they're gonna check it out, if you guys have time.
Hopefully. I mean, we tend to move pretty fast, and like we're on, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, we're on to the next place pretty quickly. But as much as we can, and we definitely have people who like to fish in the band, maybe they'll get out and do that. Get out, take a hike. We'll do what we can. Sure. We're always working too, so it's like, any given day is just as likely as not to be taken up with a bunch of writing, rehearsing, and that kind of thing.
Right. Well, hopefully you guys will get to hang out a little bit. It is a really great place to fly fish, so I hope you guys get the opportunity to do that.
Just can't wait to see our Montana people. It's going to be a great night.
Yeah.
Agree.
We're excited to have you guys.
Cool.
Okay. Well, y'all have a good one. It was nice to meet
You too. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
The new album Morning Shift by the Steep Canyon Rangers will be out on September 8th on all music streaming services. Now it's time to take a look at what events are coming up this week. Remember that you can find karaoke nights, art classes, live music, and anything community related by going to dailyinterlake.com/events and exploring our events calendar. And for business owners and event organizers out there, it is totally free to sign up and start posting your events for the entire region to see. The Glacier Camera Club is a loose-knit organization of talented photographers who have varying photogenic interests. They get together on the second Thursday of every month at the Whitefish Library. Enjoy a slideshow of digital images from the club. Come watch or share your photography. For specifications on what to bring, check out their event page at dailyinterlake.com/events. The meeting begins at 6 p.m. A community meeting addressing population change, aging, and vulnerability to wildfire in the Flathead Valley will take place on July 13th at the Flathead Valley Community College Arts and Technical Building, room 139. The meeting runs from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30. Refreshments will be provided. A Google form to sign up is available on their event page at the Daily Interlake website. Contact Ella Brodowski for more details at 616-295-8594. And the Riverbend Summer Concert Series presents Roots Uprising, playing at Sliders Park in Bigfork on July 16th at 7 p.m. Shows in the series happen every Sunday evening from June 25th until August 27th. Find details for these events and more at dailyinterlake.com/events. Thanks for joining us. News Now is a new podcast from the Daily Interlake. We're proud to be the largest independent newsroom in Montana and the oldest paper in the Valley. Consider becoming a subscriber to support our work. Call Circulation at 406-755-7018 or go to the Manage Subscription tab in the top right corner of our website. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss an episode of the pod. Everybody stay safe and have a great week.